Hey everyone, this is Todd McFarlane here. I just want to make an announcement. We're going to be doing on February 12th, on Monday, at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. on the East Coast. We're going to be doing a charity auction event, which basically means every single penny that we earn that day, 100% of it will be going to the charity that you in our polling will pick. The three charities. One is for the Animal Welfare, American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the ASPCA, for all you animal lovers out there. The other one is for children, Children's International. There are people both here in this country and around the world, children that don't have enough food in their bellies, and it's a good cause to basically see if we can help feed them. And then one of the women's rights care, another one that helps women across the globe also stay healthy, give them medical and food so they can raise their families properly. We'll let you guys decide which one of those three you want to give 100% of the money to, and then we'll basically sell and do as much fun as we can do. Now, what's going to be in the auction? Oh, we're going to go to my warehouse. We're going to find lots and lots of stuff. You guys saw some of it in the past, like sweaters. Maybe we're throwing a jacket. I found a couple pieces of artwork I'm going to donate. I'll probably do a sketch or two that's in there. We've got tons of comic books. We've got tons of toys. We're going to do some sort of gathering of things put together. We're going to offer like a half an hour personal Zoom, me and you, whoever wins that one. We get to just chit-chat, have a good time. Another one that we'll do a Zoom that any of you aspiring artists or know somebody's an artist, I will basically do a half an hour review of your portfolio of the art and give you some tips that I can. And then we're just going to come up with a bunch of other stuff that's super crazy. The goal is to raise, hopefully, somewhere between $40,000 to $100,000 maybe for a good cause, and give every single penny that's raised away to one of these great places. I think it's the reason why I'm here more than anything else on Whatnot. We can, besides a great community with you good people there, is that we can get a lot of money and help the world do a lot of good things, and in our own backyard, whether that's in a particular state and or in our country. So anybody interested, come out February 12th, 2 p.m. on the Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get ready for it. There's going to be a link in the bio to any of the charities. So if you want to basically help us in the voting of that, you can basically do your homework and research. So hope to see you there. I'll probably buy a couple items myself so we can make that donation too. All right, peace. Be good.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. I'm your host Jace. This is another Spawn Daily episode. This mini-series that I'm going to talk about in this episode, written by Alan Moore, has a lot to do with the symbiote, but it's going to be kind of a short episode because for being 4 issues, there's not a whole lot that happens. We do get some info about the costume, as I said. There's a villain that's sort of interesting, sort of two-dimensional. Honestly, I sort of expected more from an Alan Moore story. I don't even know if he shows back up at some point later in Spawn. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But in the meantime, let me talk about the books. And as I said, going to be kind of short because even though it's 4 issues, yeah, it's Alan Moore, and he gets pretty expositional. There's not a whole heck of a lot to the story. It's certainly not sophisticated, but cool cover, regardless, by Tony Daniel. You see the credits there. Story by Alan Moore, art by Tony Daniel and Kevin Conrad, letters by Tom Orzechowski, colors by Todd Broeker. So it starts off, we're on a rooftop in New York City, and basically this girl's talking about going vegetarian or vegan. Her boyfriend's kind of making fun of her, and then he gets attacked. And you see blood flying, Not exactly sure who's attacking him. Is he being ripped to pieces? Is his blood being drained? Like, what exactly is going on here? We're not 100% sure. But we do see that the attack carries on down into the apartment building where a family is attacked as well. And then the scene shifts to us seeing just the costume. You can see how skinny and flat it looks in certain places. And if you're wondering, oh, is this actually Spawn? No, it's not. It's actually just the costume without Al Simmons in it. And we get some exposition over it. We're told that this person narrating is named K7 Letha, daughter of the seventh house of K. And we do know that this symbiote is whatever, the string of K or whatever, it's a K symbiote. So Letha is the name of the costume. And I don't know that that's ever been mentioned since. Maybe further along the line, it'll come into play. But yeah, it's basically the symbiote speaking in its own voice, which is interesting because I didn't necessarily know the symbiote could speak in English terms. But as Al wakes up in the alley, he sees a bunch of his homeless buddies there, and they're kind of freaking out, going, Al, what are you doing? You okay? The costume was freaking out, and he's like, I don't know. I don't really remember. Don't even know how long I was out. And the guys are saying, yeah, we were trying to wake you up, but we couldn't even get that close because the chains were going this way and that. And they're kind of worried about him. They're like, can we help you out? And he's like, no, leave me alone. Forget it. And they're like, wow, it's kind of being a jerk, So meanwhile, at the site of the first massacres, Sam and Twitch are there. They're taking a bunch of pictures, trying to figure out what's going on. And Twitch mentions that the New York Police Department is bringing an outside expert to try to get to the bottom of what's going on. Meanwhile, Spawn is trying to figure it out as well. He's trying to speak and communicate to his costume, like literally speak to it. Like, what are you? I feel you against my skin and your chains, and I saw how you reacted in Heaven. We saw that in the Angela miniseries, and he's just not sure. He's trying to get a handle on what exactly this symbiote is and how it relates to him and whatnot. So the buddies, his homeless buddies, even though he told them to leave him alone, they are still worried about him, and so they're kind of peeking at him over the top of the building. They hear him talking to himself, and they look kind of worried. Meanwhile, at police headquarters, the expert that they hired shows up. His name is John Sansker. Supposedly, he has all this information and experience in dealing with monsters. He's some sort of monster hunter, and he does actually have a bunch of pictures of Spawn, which kind of surprised me. It's like, wait, I thought Sam and Twitch were trying to get a hold of it. Spawn, they're trying to investigate, but didn't really have that many leads on him. So where exactly these pictures come from, especially a picture without the mask on at all, with the shoelace there holding his face together, is kind of interesting that he would have this. And so he follows his normal playbook. He says, we don't call it supernatural. We don't want to scare people. We call it extra normal. We engage the public to call in any sightings. So he sort of seems on the up and up, but kind of his own character as well. So meanwhile, when Spawn sees these flyers, he's wondering what the heck's going on. The language they use in the flyers makes it seem like I'm some sort of vampire, and they're saying I killed a bunch of people. And Spawn is actually worried. He's like, did I do this when I was blacked out? Like, is this something the symbiote is doing without my knowledge? So he's a little worried about it. And then on the next couple pages, we see some sort of two-bit crooks, drug dealers, what have you, counting their money in their apartment when that same creature, whether it's Spawn or somebody else, we're not exactly sure, attacks. And there's a bunch of blood spilled and people killed. And meanwhile, Spawn's back to dreaming. Symbiote is talking to him again, and he's just wondering, what exactly is going on? Where am I? And when he comes to this time, he's in the middle of the street. He's surrounded by police, and there's a dead body at his feet. So yeah, it's not looking good for Spawn in this case. So let's go ahead and move on to issue number 2. Again, really cool cover by Tony McDaniel. You can see, well, actually, yep, there we go. You can see the Spawn there, like fighting his own costume on the cover, which is sort of interesting. And of course, it's the spikes and the chains and whatnot. And yeah, you just kind of wonder what exactly is going on. So same creative team. We have Alan Moore on story, Tony Daniel and Kevin Conrad on art, letters by Tom Orzechowski, colors by Todd Broeker. So Spawn immediately tries to escape from these police that have him surrounded. It's kind of interesting. Like the voiceover is from like a news broadcast, and they say something about a Spawn being apprehended but then escaping. Like, do you not? That's not a thing. Like, apprehended means you were caught. So he was never apprehended. He escaped. Apprehended and escaping are two different things. So meanwhile, we see John Sanskers going on again, trying to drum up more publicity. He's going on some talk shows. Talk show hosts asking him, is Spawn actually a vampire? And Sangster says, I don't really want to use those kind of terms, but he definitely seems to be a bit of a ham. He seems to be very much into the spotlight. And Sangster, he goes, I'm all about live and let live. And if it wasn't for the fact that this guy was hurting other people, I wouldn't be looking to end its life. So at this point, Spawn thinks that he's actually killing these people. He thinks that it's his costume is taking him over, and he's killing people. So he's trying to figure out what he needs to do because he's worried. He doesn't want to be somebody who's out there killing innocent people, and he thinks who he can go to for help. And he remembers one of his old CIA contacts named Jacob Groenfield. It's probably where the missing weapons that he was looking for ended up. So he decides to look him up because he feels like he's somebody he can trust. Now, when he goes to Jacob's house, this is what's interesting. And, a different take from what Todd McFarlane has given us from Alan Moore here. Spawn can't even convince Terry Fitzgerald and Wanda Blake that he's Al Simmons. And those are people that have known Al pretty well and have had some dealings with Spawn. Spawn just shows up on the front doorstep of this Jacob guy, and he just accepts it. Maybe because he's in the CIA, but Terry's in the CIA too. But it's so strange. He literally just accepts it. It's like, it's no big deal. Oh, you're a crazy supernatural demon-looking guy with a flowing cape and magical chains, and you tell me you're Al Simmons? Okay, I believe you. It seems a little strange. So meanwhile, at the TV studio where Sangster's just finished giving his interview, Sam and Chit show up. They say, hey, we got a tip. Somebody's called in, a Spawn sighting. And so Sangster goes up to the roof, jumps on the helicopter, and flies off to hunt down Spawn. So meanwhile, Sam and Twitch seem to have their reservations about Sangster. They don't 100% trust him. So Spawn is talking to Jacob. He's trying to get some advice. He says, I don't even know if I'm the one killing these people. I don't know if I can trust myself. I'm trying to figure out what to do. When the helicopter shows up and Jacob says, please don't hurt me, Al. I felt forced into this. So it turns out it's this Jacob guy that turned Spawn in. So Al Simmons feels like, once again, alone and betrayed, nobody to help him. And we see Sangster jump in through the window, glass goes flying. So at that point, all of a sudden, Sangster goes from this police detective type helper guy to all of a sudden you realize there's something more to him than meets the eye. So Spawn decides that retreat, or discretion rather, is the better part of valor, and he takes off with Sangster giving chase. And once he confronts Spawn, they have a bit of a battle, and Spawn's actually getting his butt kicked before the cape decides to take matters into its own hands and sort of swaddles up or suffocates sanks her, knocks him out, and Spawn runs off. And when the police helicopter pilot's like, "Why don't you jump on? We'll follow him." Sankster's like, "No, it's fine. Let him enjoy the last few hours of nights because when daybreak comes, it's going to be the last daybreak he's ever seen." So, like I said, there's clearly more to Sangster than meets the eye with his ability to go toe to toe and kick the crap out of Spawn. He claims to be human and a monster hunter and a detective, but very much feels right from the start like he's a monster in and of himself. So once again, Al feels alone. He feels betrayed. He decides to take matters into his own hands. If he can't find anybody to help him, he'll help himself. He does have one of his friends, one of his homeless buddies there with him, and he strips off the costume and chains it up into a footlocker, throws it into the bay, and then gets his buddy to give him a trench coat because as soon as he removes the symbiote, remember, that symbiote provides him with a lot of energy and sustenance and power and warmth. He feels really cold. He feels weak. He feels tired. So he gets a trench coat to travel back to his alley where he can sit on his throne and get some rest. When he does show up there, he tells the rest of the guys, "Hey, keep an eye out. Obviously, I got rid of my costume. It was causing some problems. Just, keep me safe while I sleep." And they're all acting sort of strange. They're not acting like they usually do. And it's not, they're kind of one-word answers. It just seems like there's something off. But Al is so tired and worn down that he doesn't really notice. And what happens is he falls asleep and immediately dreams of the symbiote. He dreams of it falling down and drowning, and he's thinking about why he's having these dreams and not realizing that even though he separated himself from the symbiote at the moment that they combined, that they were placed together, there's a part of each of them in each other. So in a way, the reason Al is so tired and so cold and so devoid of energy is because he's feeling what the symbiote is feeling as it's trapped at the bottom of this murky bay in New York City. So interrupting this dream is a bunch of the homeless guys that were acting so weird just a few pages ago. And when Al wakes up and wonders what's wrong, these guys have bought into this propaganda that John Sanxier has been espousing, and they think Spawn's a vampire, so they staked him with a wooden stake, and they're wondering why he hasn't turned to dust. So pretty brutal way to deal with Spawn. So that's the way issue 2 ends. Let's go ahead and move on to issue 3. Again, a really cool cover from Tony Daniel, this time with the wooden spike right through him, no costume. Credits, once again, same creative team, Alan Moore, Tony Daniel, Kevin Conrad on art, letters by Tom Orzechowski, colors by Todd Broeker. And we pick up right where the last issue left off. Spawn has been spiked. They pour gas on him. They light him on fire. He's asking them why they're doing it. They say, we're just trying to protect ourselves. We've heard that you're a monster. And once Spawn is on fire, he kind of freaks out, and these guys go scattering. Spawn runs for the docks where he left the symbiote, and you wonder for a moment if he's about to bind with it again, but really he just needs to jump into the water just to put out the flames. And the homeless guys are watching him, and they're like, wait, we thought that vampires avoided bodies of water. So they're already having doubts right from the start that Spawn may not be a vampire after all. We do take a quick peek in at the symbiote, who is still kind of suffering, but is still trapped. And Spawn ends up surfacing and seeing some sewage pipes where he can hide out, since he can't even hide out in his alley anymore where he used to feel safe. He's feeling very persecuted, very alone, very unwanted. And lo and behold, who's in the sewer pipe waiting for him but the clown. So definitely not a great day to be Spawn. So meanwhile, Sam and Twitch are talking about how much it sucks, this whole vampire business. They don't think Spawn's a vampire, but they're playing second fiddle to this John Sanxier guy, and they're not big fans of his methods. Meanwhile, back in the sewer pipes, the Violator's saying, hey, I've been labeled an extreme hazard too. So I'm just looking for a place to hide out. Maybe we can help each other. And Spawn's like, well, why would you help me? And the Violator basically says, well, because I don't want anybody to beat you but me. So it makes a lot of sense. It is consistent with the Violator's personality. He does remove the stake, the wooden stake from Spawn, which causes Spawn no great deal of pain. And the Violator's like, you should get out. I'm getting out of town. You should get out of town as well until this all blows over. And he decides he's going to head to Washington, D.C., and he brushes his hair, says, hey, don't I look like Danny DeVito? And then puts on a suit, goes wandering off to D.C. He's like, if there's any place that's safe, but still has plenty of bloodsuckers, it's Washington, D.C. So he heads off while Spawn is still trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And Sam and Twitch are trying to do the same. Twitch is especially suspicious of this John Sanxier, and when he goes into the office he's been given, starts going through some files, he sees files and evidence and what have you dating back like 200 years. And so once he realizes that, there must be a lot more to John Sanxier than possible, or more than meets the eye. He seems to be over 200 years old. But unfortunately, Sanxier is there dripping blood and finds Twitch in his office going through his private papers. So not a good place to be if you're Twitch. Meanwhile, Spawn is trying to find a way to get back to the alley where he can rest. He hotwires a car because he's too weak to even walk. But once again, all the spotters throughout the city that Sanxier has deployed are able to spot him. And so when Sam goes to tell Sanxier that they've captured Spawn or they've located him, they've had a sighting, Sanxier once again jumps in the helicopter. Twitch notices some blood on the ground leading to a locker, and when he opens it up, there's Twitch, much to Sam's terror, all bent and broken and folded in half and definitely not in a good position. So once again, Sanxier proving he's more monster than man. And you just wonder, are you even trying to keep anything secret at this point? Because he has the helicopter pilot just fly down real low over the car, jumps out of the helicopter to the helicopter pilot's surprise, and then rips the roof off the car and attacks Spawn. So, anybody looking at this can't possibly believe this guy's anything remotely human. He very much is what he proclaims to be hunting, which is a monster. So, unfortunately, Spawn doesn't have the benefit of the symbiote this time to help him. So he's really getting his butt kicked by John Sanxier. And eventually what happens is Spawn was, headed back toward the dock, maybe thinking about reuniting with his symbiote, while Sanxier basically makes sure that Spawn gets exactly what he wants as far as heading toward the dock. And he's trapped in the car that he stole, and Sanxier lets it run off the end of the pier or the dock into the water, and Spawn may very well drown. So that's the cliffhanger for the third issue. Fourth issue, again, fantastic cover. This time Spawn wrapped up in a snake tail. You might be wondering what the heck's going on with that. Well, we'll get there. But the creative team, let me give it real quick once again. Alan Moore on story, Daniel and Conrad on art. Tom Orzechowski does the letters, Todd Broeker on colors. And we do see Spawn sinking down in the car, having bits of flashback, thinking about the symbiote, and able to crawl over and make contact with the symbiote, able to reach the chest where the symbiote is trapped. And meanwhile, Sanxier's on the dock, sort of gloating, when Sam Burke shows up after evidence, irrefutable evidence showing that Sanxier is the one that attacked Twitch and folded him up and stuck him in the locker. And so Twitch is saying, don't move, turn around slow. And Sanxier's like, okay, my cover's blown. we learn that he's really a vampire. He's able to go out in sunlight because he uses sunblock. He's got all kinds of plans to sort of rule the world. He's happy to go into hiding for the next 70, 80 years, what have you. Just needs to do a little bit of cleanup on the mess that he has now. And then he'll be able to go into hiding and resurface somewhere else, or maybe even blame all this on Spawn and go into hiding. You just wonder, like, how if this is the way this guy acts, all wild animal-like, that somebody hasn't figured him out sooner. It's very surprising. So meanwhile, Spawn continues to search for the chest where his symbiote is trapped. He finally locates it, opens it up, and yeah, we get a chance to see a fantastic double-page spread. Well, first there's more scenes of Sanxir and the cops fighting, with Sanxir clearly being super powered and faster reflexes, and I mean, he kicks his leg right through one guy at one point. So pretty brutal all in all. But we saw Spawn finally reach the footlocker that had his symbiote costume in it. When he opens up, it floats there in front of him. They're sort of communicating, and we get a great looking splash page from Tony Daniel with Spawn leaping out of the water. And now that Spawn and his symbiote are back together, he's going to be a much more formidable opponent for Sanxir, and Sanxir doesn't think so. And that also, in a way, really helps to allow Spawn to be more than a match for Sanxir, because he's underestimating him. So we finally see Sanxir change into his pure vampire form, where he's much whiter and looks more demonic. And eventually the sun starts coming up, and Spawn expects Sanxir to sort of disintegrate, but he doesn't. And he says, hey, I'm a powerful enough vampire that I can hang around directly in the sun at high noon. That's certainly not going to stop me. But he does decide to transform, one of the other powers that a vampire has, and he transforms into a partial snake creature, and basically says that he knows his cover is blown at this point, and it's not really worth hanging around, because he rather would just lay low and resurface at a later time and try to take over the vampires of the world and the world itself in turn at that point. So meanwhile, Sam is trying to talk to Spawn to figure out what the heck's going on. Spawn just wants to be left alone. He dives off the end of the pier as Sam's yelling, no! And that's how the issue ends. So there's a couple of things that I had a little bit of trouble with. I understood the gist of why Spawn would think that the costume was taking over, because he was having these sort of blackout periods, and the costume was trying to talk to him, and it was having a little bit of a mind of its own. But what I didn't understand was, if Sanxir was a vampire, why were none of the victims ever drained of blood? That was a thing that Twitch kept saying. It's not Spawn, because they're not drained of blood, and we know Spawn hasn't drained anything of blood. Vampires drink blood. So what exactly is going on there? And then even the victims that Sanxir killed, there was blood everywhere, but they weren't drained of blood. But Sanxir was getting blood from the blood bank. So why were you bothering to kill these innocent people, Sanxir, if you were going to get blood from the blood bank? Now, we're told that he gets blood from the blood bank because he's worried about HIV, which is still, a big thing in the mid-90s, and so that's fine. But if you're doing that, then why are you still killing random people on the street? I don't know. That part didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. The other part of it was at the end of that first issue, where Spawn came to, and his cloak was even wrapped around the neck of a lady, and with the cops surrounding him. So, if you show me that scene, of course I'm going to think that that the costume is responsible, just like Spawn did. You can't blame me for thinking that. So how did Sanxir set that up? That didn't make a whole lot of sense either. But all in all, it's an interesting story. It shows how important the symbiote host relationship is for Letha and Spawn. And the other main takeaway from this series is the fact that Twitch got all folded up, because when you go and look at the Spawn reading order, the book that comes out right after this is issue number 33, and that issue starts off with Twitch being in the hospital and like a full body cast, and sort of we see his wife for the first time and whatnot. And so now we know why that happened. I thought it had something to do with a fight between Twitch and Spawn, or a building collapsed on him or something. I had no idea it was some crazy vampire that folded him up and stuck him in the file cabinet in his room or his office. That was sort of crazy. So the Tony Daniel art is very consistent throughout. It's not my favorite Tony Daniel work. I think the work he's doing now is much, much better. This is early in his career, though, so he definitely improves. This is before a lot of the issues in the mid to late 40s that he does. About a year later, even those issues have a great improvement over the storytelling and the rendering here. So I'm not saying the art's terrible. It's not bad, and it definitely feels kinetic and big and bombastic, but Tony, I think, would be the first one to say that there's a lot of room for improvement in this art. So, and he does get there eventually. He gets there on Spawn. He gets there on a ton of other fantastic books like Noctera as well. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it as always, and we will talk to you next time.